Okay, next up we're going to talk about interfacing and understitching, and facings really. And you might be thinking, well, what is a facing? A facing is something that's cut out in the same shape as your garment, right, or whatever area you're finishing, and it's stitched to the garment, then turned to the inside of the garment. So you have a nice clean finished edge. So it's used on, a lot of times it'll be used on the fronts of jackets. It'll be on armholes whenever you have an armhole that doesn't have a sleeve and it's just, you know, a nice clean finished open sleeveless garment. And then understitching is what helps prevent the facing from showing on the correct side of the garment. Okay, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But I've just cut out, this is in your book on page 384. This is, there's a little pattern for these little half scale patterns. And I've cut out 2 of the shirt patterns and then 2 facing pieces. And then I've also cut out 2 pieces of interfacing. Now this we're going to attach to the back of the facing piece. And with this interfacing, there's always like a glue side. This is fusible interfacing. There's a glue side and then a fabric side. And you want to put the glue side face down on the back of your pattern piece. So I'm putting glue side down. Now, whenever you attach interfacing to a pattern piece, you always want to use a pressing cloth. Just trying to find a piece big enough. Here we go. It can be just any piece of cloth, right? But you always want to put something over it before you press it. Because what if you accidentally had one of those pieces with the glue side facing up? You definitely don't want to glue that to your iron because it's really hard to get off, and then, you know, your iron's out of commission while you clean it off. And to attach that, to melt that glue, you need to press it a little, but you also need a little bit of steam. It needs a real high heat to melt that glue. Okay, so once you get that attached, this really just adds a little weight and strength to your fabric, okay? And that's what we need, especially in the front of a jacket, or if you had a sleeveless garment, you would want that extra strength on there. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to line these up right sides together, just on top of that garment piece. Facing goes right on top there. Next thing we'll do, we'll stitch a 1/4 inch in. We're going to start here, go around this curve, and then come straight down the front. Okay, so just stitching 1/4 inch seam allowance. Around the curve, then down the front. Okay, now, first thing I want to do, clip my corner. Then I'm going to go through, I'm going to clip along this curved line. Now, I want to press, I'm going to press the seam out. Press it flat first, and then I'm going to push it. I'm going to push the seam allowance towards the facing and press it like that. Okay, so at this point, you should have a nice crisp corner here. You should be always, you know, when you're doing any kind of a facing, you want to be able to see your stitching right along the edge of that garment. Now, as you can see, I've pressed my seam allowance towards the facing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to top stitch on the facing, and I'm actually attaching the seam allowance to the facing. And you're not going to be able to get all the way up into that corner. Obviously, it's going to be way too hard to get up in there, but I'm going to go as high up as I possibly can. And I'm just stitching, you know, real close to that folded edge. Maybe I should get in a little bit closer so you can see I've got the folded edge just kind of lined up with the inside edge of my presser foot here. I'm just getting as high up as I possibly can. Okay, so when you look at this piece, you should be able to see the line of understitching just right along the facing edge here. If you open it up, you can see I've got the seam allowance sewn to the facing. That's the important part. And that way, when I throw this piece in the washing machine, say this was a finished garment, you know, I can wash it 100 times and that facing is never going to roll around, and you won't be able to see that stitching on the front. Okay, and it'll keep a nice sharp corner for you. Okay, that is interfacing and understitching.